Welcome to the Elevated Trader Podcast. I am Dr. Kristen Kidgel.
And I am Tracy Ball. Join us every week as we journey into becoming better traders.
We believe becoming better traders involves elevating our skill, our mindset, and our health. In each episode, we will discuss the current book we are exploring, and we invite you to join us on this journey.
Are you ready to elevate your trading, mindset, and health to the next level? Let's do this. All right, so welcome back to another Elevated Trader podcast. We are moving into our new book called Let the Trade Winds Flow. This is part 1, and it is by Louise Bedford, Tate, and Dr. Harry Stanton. Kristen, exciting? We're starting a new book.
I cannot wait to talk about sailing.
Yeah, there's no sailing in this book.
There's
that's
not
funny.
A single thing about sailing.
No. In fact, it starts out basically on, can psychology actually help the trader? So I ask you, I'm going to pose that question to you. What are your thoughts?
It's the numero uno thing that you need to grasp to become a successful trader is your mindset and trader psychology. So buckle up.
Exactly. Buckle up. It's exactly the reason why we're doing the podcast. We've talked about this a million times before. And, they've made quotes in here about how, a lot of successful traders, they'll all tell you the same thing, that the more experience they have, the more they recognize that it comes down to mindset and the psychology of things. Performance athletes recognize, you've heard things like it's 80% mental, 20% skill, that kind of thing. I would venture to say that just about every single thing that we do in life comes down to a mental component of some sort, and how well you perform that, or how you take it, how you recover from it, whatever it might be, is going to come from mindset. So yeah, that's why this podcast, we focus on mindset, just like we focus on health and then the actual technical aspects of things. So
right.
It's important, right? So
yeah, and I think the word important needs like a really good adjective, like extremely important.
You're absolutely right. It's not.
If there's a beyond important, what is beyond important? Okay, I digress.
Crucial.
Crucial. That's a really good one. Yep.
Yeah, it's crucial. So I would say that, it starts out by saying the same psychology is useful beyond trading. And that's the thing. So even though this book is called Let the Trade Winds Flow, it's geared towards the trader. It applies to every aspect of your life. And there's going to be things, even if you're not a trader, that you can benefit from this. And I've said this before, I've heard it before. You've probably said it before, you've probably heard it before, but trading can amplify who you are as a person, or it can bring out some of your weaknesses or some of your strengths, and vice versa. There's things that you can learn by trading that you can take back into your actual life and help you with that, right?
For sure. Yeah, like the main author is the psychologist. And that's, I believe, I don't know if that was in the first chapter or the forward, but he's like, use this in all parts of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not kidding. Like, he's like, you can hear his tone. He's like, please understand, please don't just use this in your trading.
Exactly. Absolutely. Now, it goes on to say that if you are to achieve success as a trader, you must learn to trust yourself and your proven system, ignoring these highly fallible outside influences and following your rules exactly. What does that mean to you?
Oof. It's brutal. No, it's one of the things that, like, when you create your plan, those are your rules. And if you break your plan, those are your rules. And I find it interesting the way they talk about breaking your plan. And we'll get into that. But I think it's going to surprise some people, because one of the things I think you and I have been exposed to quite a bit is, like, if you break your plan, if you don't follow your rules, there's typically has to be a pain involved. And that's not the direction they go with that. But to be successful, and to take emotion out of it, which is part of the psychology part, is you basically, to me, this is the term I use. I have a sticky note. It says right here, it says, first of all, what's my why? And the second one is be an algo, which is basically trade like a computer.
It's funny because in this chapter as well, they talk about how our subconscious records every experience. It's basically a perfect recollection of everything we've learned and done throughout our life. And, memory or our ability to retrieve the information comes down to not a memory issue, but a retrieval issue. And how do we access that information? And emotions are probably the biggest thing that stop us from accessing that information. It's like a different system. It's a diversion, a complete diversion meant to keep you in a place of comfort. Right?
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean the subconscious is it's the subconscious, right? It takes understanding first that it exists, it's real, and that it's running, over 90% of our bodily activities and our habits and, brushing your teeth. Like, you don't even think about it, right? Like, that's your subconscious is doing that because you've trained it. So yeah, for sure. And then the emotions and the stuff that we're exposed to when we're younger, belief systems or whatever that is like, you have to identify these things. And the book does go through some process of identifying certain things, but it takes work to learn it, and it takes work to process it. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't have to be difficult. It just has to be done.
No, absolutely. So what do you think some of the challenges that the market present to us that we would have to overcome? What are some that
people, first of all, people think like, oh, the market's out to get me, or, it's the market makers, or it's that group over there in Reddit or whatever. Like, the market is just a machine. And I think we try to think that it's out to get us or something like that, or, I don't know if that makes sense. It's just, I think we could create our own mind game around it, and that could be helpful or not helpful. Most people probably just pick an unhealthy version of that market.
No, I agree. What about losing? Because I think losing is a big obstacle that people have to overcome, right?
Yeah, well, I think it depends on like where you're raised, where you're born. I honestly, like, some probably countries or situations, if they're constantly having to lose, and then there's winners and there's losers. But we are a weird society, I think, in the United States, where we're like, we celebrate all these wins, but we don't teach our children or ourselves as we get older. It's like, well, what is it like to lose? Does it have to be so dramatic? And in essence, losing is a part of trading, period. You and I grew up playing sports. I'm going to speak for myself. It didn't really hurt to lose until it was like playoffs. Because you're not going to have, you could have an undefeated season. The likelihood is very slim. So you can expect some losses, some tight games, be like, that's a good game. You still are shaking the other team's hand at the end, even if you lost.
Yeah. You know why it hurts so much, the finals, when you lose the finals? Why? Because that's the end goal, right? For that season. It's kind of like you have this goal to reach that season and you don't achieve that goal. That's what hurts. And if you can take a step back and you have to make that almost a goal of a bigger goal, it can't be the end all goal, but the way that it's created and presented itself, that's the end of season goal. So your entire season, everything that you've been working towards leads up to that one point. And if you don't win, you didn't hit your goal. And like I said, if you're able to take a step back and look at each year as a step towards a bigger, grander goal of achieving something more internally versus externally.
What I'd like to add for us to think about is, we're not in a season of playing a bunch of games, and if we don't win the finals, we're kicked out. We're done. With trading, we are winning and losing, and you're only done when you decide that you're done. You're not done because the season's over. Mm-hmm. So what we also have to remember, this is not new information for regular traders, is like your win-loss rate. So if you have a good risk reward, right, and you have like a 50% success rate, like, you're coming out on top. So basically, for those people that like play baseball or hockey or something, like, you have a 500, right? You're batting 500 or something. But every time you hit, most of your hits are like doubles and triples, and you've got other people on base and stuff. So I think it's bigger picture
Mm-hmm.
to make the smaller picture decisions. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you have to have all these little tiny rules, but like those little rules add up to like the big picture. And then again, we're back to our why, and we're back to our win rate over a week or over a month. I mean, these are games that I had to mentally play with myself and say those single loss days when I would break my rules, they were devastating.
Oh yeah.
But when I have a red day, but I just had 4 green days, I'm ending the week ahead. Like, we forget that. Why do we forget that in the heat? Why do we do that? So that's the cleanup. And the only way to clean it up, we will be discussing in other parts here.
Absolutely. And actually, it's all about perspective, right? Gaining perspective. And, you know, when you talk about the individual loss and you just focus on the loss, it's painful, it's hurtful, it can be agonizing. You're emotionally charged with it. But the minute that you take a step back and take a bigger picture and you go, okay, well, you know, the last 4 days I was green, so I'm up on the week, all of a sudden that loss is so much more easy to tolerate because it's in perspective of the greater thing, right? And that's absolutely one of the key elements to attacking or combating the obstacles that the market presents to you, whether it be losing or whether it be, you know, some of the beliefs that you have about the markets. Having perspective, gaining perspective, identifying what those are, and changing your outlook, getting to one that's more realistic and better for you, that serves you better.
Just to be clear, so people are prepared for the future parts and recordings of this particular book, is he's giving us the steps.
Oh yeah.
He's giving us the how to retrain. I'm super excited to get into those future episodes, but my point is, well, one of the things that's kind of like that burning question I want to wrap this episode up with is, if somebody's having losses, what would your one recommendation be because they're not going to quit. They have the mindset, they go, you know what, I'm going to fail, there's going to be losses, I'm stuck, something's up, I'm stuck. Like, what's the one piece they could walk away with that maybe you've picked up from this book that we're going to be sharing with them, that if they're finding themselves really, really struggling, what advice would you give them?
I believe that I'm thinking that Chris mentions in the book somewhere, or he says, you know, if you've had a few losses in a row, you know, reduce your size and look for the small. Just take a small win. If you can find a small win, take that small win. It's not about the money. There's something that needs to reset in your brain that says, you know, when you have consistent losses, you start having that mental talk that says, I'm a loser, instead of recognizing, okay, this is a loss, and not really knowing what's causing the loss, not taking that objective approach to it and looking at it and saying, okay, well, am I more emotionally trading, or what am I doing? You haven't been able to identify that. You continue on that path. So the best thing to do is, you know, cut the bleeding, slow the bleeding down, first of all, so that you don't drain your account, reduce your size significantly, and just look for that win. You just need to get some wins. And if you can't get it in trading, then I've heard Jeremy suggest, you know, go do something that you can win at. Just get something that's going to stop that negative talk inside that's saying that you're a loser, because that's emotionally charged. It doesn't serve you. It's not a speech that is empowering or growth inspired or anything like that. It is something that is going to keep you bound to be a failure. And when we have these thoughts in our head, we will start to do and think and look for things that are going to support our beliefs. And that includes taking more bad trades to support the idea or the thought that we have in our head that we are a loser. And we will continue to do so until that changes. So we need to find something that's going to change that inner talk. And that's where it starts. So like I said, find something that you're good at, get that win, get that success under your belt, and that'll stop that inner talk until you develop the skills or the tools that you need to be able to do that in a different way. Right.
And we're going to go through some of those techniques and skills. This book This book is very interesting, and it is nothing what I expected.
What did you expect?
Well, we knew it was about trading.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know where it was going to go.
Right.
And this is heavy on psychology, but it's heavy on how to fix the psychology.
Yeah.
In unconventional ways, which I super appreciate. And
well, the last
open mind. Have an open mind, everybody.
Yes, do. Because in the third chapter in this part that we're going to be covering is it's about getting things into perspective, but it's also a lot about making decisions and not being able to make decisions. So being stuck, having paralysis or indecision, and what can you do? So there's a couple techniques that you and I have both started to implement, but one that I like, it's called the coin toss. And I think this is really cool because it's not about flipping a coin and getting the coin to decide what you want to do, but when you flip a coin, if you're undecided about something, you flip a coin, the minute you flip that coin, the answer comes to you. You know what you don't want it to show up as. And so that's one little tip and tool that they explain in the book on how to overcome indecision or things like that. But you and I have started using pendulum. And just give me your feedback, because first of all, explain what it is.
Okay, so first of all, if you haven't heard of people using a pendulum, you're probably like, that's kind of woo-woo stuff. Or you're like, oh my gosh, I've been using a pendulum for years. Or you know someone that uses one and they've been around for decades and decades and decades. But I think the point he was trying to get across is we're all energy, we're all frequencies. He's like, way before our parents and grandparents, they were studying the unconscious and frequencies and emotions and, you know, all the things, the subconscious and all that stuff. So it's a real thing that these pendulums, whether it's out of a crystal or a key or something you've just tied to, a foot-long string here, and you can ask it questions, and you could start with like, what is show me a yes and show me a no. I mean, I know this is like, even me saying it's like, this is a little crazy telling people this, but whether you do it or not, matter of fact, when you read the book, one of the other authors is like, when he told me this, I was like, what is he talking about? This is my mentor. I look up to this guy. We've become friends. I've known him since I was a teenager. And she's like, but I trust him. And so I did it. And so that's, I think, where the open-mindedness, but it's one of those things you can explain up to the point where you can't explain it anymore. And that's kind of where I am. I'm like, it's energies, it's frequencies, it's stuff that can be measured, but most people just won't even go read the research or anything. They'll just try it. And well, it isn't the only thing he discusses, but it is helping. He's used it, I think he said 50 years. He's no longer with us, but the point was that he's like, just try it. He's like, it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the thing that really makes sense to me is the idea that, like I said before, or I've said before, that your subconscious is a perfect recollection of everything you've experienced, everything you've learned, all the knowledge is sitting there. And we don't have issues with memory. We have issues with retrieval. So it's not that we don't remember the information, it's we don't know where we've put it. And being able to tap into that energy or that intuition is coming from you. It's the answer's coming from you. So it's coming from that deep subconscious where that information is stored and buried. And that's why I can understand it. It makes sense to me that way. I realize that I know the information and I just need to figure out how to get it. And however I want to communicate that with myself, that's how it's going to be. Now, he does say that using a pendulum is not for people that don't have the experience or the knowledge. And that's the point. If you don't know, you don't know. And this isn't going to help you change that. It's not going to make you a better trader if you don't have the skill set or the knowledge to make you a better trader. So that's not what this is. It's not some foo-foo stuff. So it's one of the things that I really liked about this book, and I was super excited because as soon as I got to it, I was like, Kristen, they're talking about the emotion code. And I texted you right away because you're doing something very similar with your emotion code stuff, right?
Right. Yes. There's a book called The Emotion Code. And after I read it, I said, this is what I'm looking for to help people on another level.
Yeah.
So the chiropractic does so much physical. As a human being, I have a tendency to also mentor a lot of people. And that just comes with the work. I think a lot of people in my profession, if you spend time with people, often or something, you end up, if they want to share, or maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was looking for the next level. And this book was like, this is it right here. And every chapter, even the forward by Tony Robbins was enlightening. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I just recommend people read it, first of all, because all of that information's out there for free. But if you want to do it to others and things like that, you can use muscle testing. And again, it's still about energies and frequencies and just healing, like figuring out, asking yourself these questions, or getting the help to clear, emotional baggage, limiting beliefs, and, cycles you feel like you're stuck in, or even like illnesses and pain and things like that. All can be like buried negative emotions from your past, which is pretty sketchy. And that's can totally affect your trading. 100%.
100%. And you're a licensed practitioner, or you're going to be a licensed practitioner in that?
Yep. Almost finished with the certification.
Perfect.
But having to do it already a ton. Part of the certification is already working with people. And it's actually been super incredible.
That's awesome.
I'm really enjoying it. And I just want to throw this in there. One of the things that I'm noticing a lot, actually, before I learned about the emotion code, there's other techniques out there. A lot of therapists use like EMDR and again, there's I don't know, Psych K is, I think, is another one by Dr. Bruce Lipton, because he did a ton. He basically helped rewrite the books that are being taught in universities now. It's pretty crazy that the stuff that's happening just in the last decade is just nuts. One of the things I've been finding a lot of lately is people are stuck in stages of grief. And so we need to define grief, right? It's like a loss of like either a person or a pet or a relationship or something that you were really heading towards and that you had, and then you lost it. So there are stages of grief. I highly recommend people like define those, because if you're stuck in a stage of grief, there are ways out. And that's all I want to say about that, because that will really affect your trading too, because it'll self-sabotage you. You'll have triggers that you don't know you have. And then if you don't know what a trigger is, I would say just start self-regulating your emotions and see when you feel yourself getting emotional about something, if there's something happening around you that may have triggered it. That typically means, you've got something buried in there.
Yeah, such a great point. All right, well, you guys join us for the next part. We'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us today. For more information about the show, as well as our list of current reads, check us out at www.theelevatedtrader.com.
Remember to subscribe and share if you found value in today's episode. See you next week.